a great job. So in a sense, lawyers do a fabulous job and they help the community. And there's a lot of things they do which are just fantastic. So it's wonderful being on the show with you, Priyanjali, and Anjali, I would say, I'm sorry. And it's going to be a great show. And so you want to begin? You want to do the honors? How do we take it from here?
Yes, sir. So I think we are live now, and good afternoon to everybody who's watching us. I'm Anjali, your moderator for the webinar today, and I'm also heading the sales and marketing division for My Legal Software, which is a legal case management software. So today is September 9th, that is a Thursday, and we are here with our weekly webinar. And today we are going to talk about how can attorneys defend marriage fraud cases. So it's my request to all the attendees that if you want to put any questions, then you can put them in the comment section below, or you can drop us an email at legalquestions@mylegalsoftware.com. So if we are not able to answer all the questions in the session, we would definitely get back to you over the email. Also, attendees have a chance to win the gift hamper from My Legal Software. And all you have to do is take the screenshot of the session or click a photo and add it to your social media handles, tagging My Legal Software. Of course, you have to be a lawyer, paralegal, or from the law firm. And any advice that is given during the session in the webinar does not account to a legal advice. And information given in the session is general in nature. So, Mr. Gehi, let's talk more about how can attorneys defend marriage fraud cases? Like, why this topic?
This topic because this is one area of practice which is encountered by every second immigration lawyer in the country. This topic is important because based upon my experience, I've handled a lot of complicated marriage-based immigration cases. I feel that with due respect, some lawyers do commit mistakes when they handle these cases. Some lawyers throw the towel to the government right away. Some lawyers don't know how to screen cases. And some of them basically kind of, they even jeopardize the status of the client. So we are all here to learn from each other. We are all here to grow, and we are all here to make sure that we do not, if we can avoid these mistakes, nothing like it. So in the beginning, I'm going to start with the basics. Now, there's a reason why I'm starting with the basics, because in this session, the session is meant for lawyers like who are beginners, as well as lawyers who've been in practice for a long time. Yes, this is an advanced session. So the way we're going to divide it is the first half, I'll be talking like a layman so that everybody understands the factual scenarios. After that, we are going to deep dive into the law. So that's how I'm going to basically conduct this session today. So Anjali, do you have any questions before I begin, or should I begin?
Sir, I actually wanted to ask, like, what was your favorite, like, marriage fraud case? Like, favorite in the sense, which do you think was the most challenging one that you would have handled during your tenure?
So I have a plan today. We are going to talk about that as we go on.
Okay.
So slowly and steadily, I'm going to come to everything what I've handled, how lawyers need to handle it, how to screen a case, whether to take up a case or no. And why should you not be scared before the USCIS officer if you're over there? So these are some of the pertinent issues that we need to look into very carefully before we take things to the next level. So the number one thing which I want to say is that let's take an example about a case that started in a lawyer's office. You started this case, and what you need to look at if you are not experienced in immigration is the signs that immigration is going to look at, which means exactly when immigration is going to raise an eyebrow and how do you avoid those eyebrows? Because the first step is prevention is better than cure. As I mentioned, I'm going to start with the basics, but definitely I'm going to get into advanced, and a lot of seasoned lawyers are going to love my second part of the presentation here. So When the client comes into your office, first you need to check the background of your clients, the type of marriage they've entered into. And I'm going to tell you from all my experience what immigration officers look at and how they're trained. From the little experience that I have, only it's a long experience, but I'm just saying from all my experience in going to immigration and even fighting federal cases, what have I seen? So number one is when the client walks into your office, immigration always looks at whether the background of the client. Number one is whether they're married to a person from the same culture, which they're not allowed to, but they want to see whether it's a bona fide marriage or not. So they know from experience that certain people don't marry certain people. It's a prejudice, it's a bias, what do we call it? But we are bound by the system, to see. So they generally look at that. So as a lawyer, if you see that exactly that your gut feeling is telling you that I want to know a little more, deep dive into the marriage. Why? Because that is your ethical responsibility as a lawyer, to make sure that a lawyer will not basically take up a case wherein he is aware of the fact that basically this is not a kosher case. The first thing is that if you feel that this marriage is not kosher, and if the marriage is meant to circumvent the immigration laws of the United States, that's a red alert straight up there. So point number one. Point number two, I'm deep diving into the case. I am looking at the petitioner's background here. Now, an example is that there's a petitioner who has 4 children and she's on food stamps, she's on social security, and she just got married yesterday, and she walked into the office with this guy, and this man is from a completely different culture, and this lady comes from a different culture altogether. I would sit with the client and I would interview them at length. That's how I know whether, yes, the marriage may be 100% bona fide. But immediately when I feel that there's something wrong over here, I would shy away from that case because they want to look at the affidavit of support. And this lady has 4 children. Ask the beneficiary how much he knows about the 4 children. Straight sign that you are walking into something that can wind you in troubled waters when you go there. So be careful of those cases. Your screening is done over here. But if you feel that they are living together, ask them questions such as how long you've known the person and how long they dated before they got married. And of course, if they dated for a long time, if they're living in the same house, and if they plan basically to make sure that they are living together and he knows the names of the children, then you need to move further on this case. But if your gut feeling is telling you this is not something you need to touch, don't touch it, because immigration also keeps the records of the lawyers who constantly, repetitively engage in these practices. Second red herring is that if the client tells you, hey, listen, I'm just marrying this person for papers, that's something for you to be very careful about. So the client has made his intention very clear to you, and they'll even tell you, can you come to the side and talk to me? As a professional lawyer, tell them, no, I'm not here for this. Straight up, number one, and tell them to take a walk from your office. Third very important thing is now you've taken up a case, and after you took up that case, you didn't know a whole lot about them. Suddenly, after 3 or 4 months, you have been called to represent the client in an adjustment of status hearing. One big mistake lawyers do, especially who are new to the profession, because everyone learns with mistakes. They send a per diem attorney when they know that there will be eyebrows raised in this case. Because some cases are good, but there is a probability of an eyebrow being raised by immigration. Even if you are sending a per diem is like a third-party lawyer, just an outside lawyer who goes for the interview, for people, who don't know much and who are joining us today. So when you have that per diem lawyer going for the interview, you have to make sure that you prepare the client first. and make sure that you prepare the client so well that he's really good and he matches your standards, because you are the goalkeeper, you're the lawyer. Then even if the per diem attorney does not perform well, your client will know how to answer those questions. So preparation is the key before you send the person to the USCIS office. Now the fun is going to begin of how I'm going to start talking. So now you send your client over there to the USCIS interview. And one of the parties freaked out. The petitioner freaks out at the interview. How are you going to handle this? That is an art. So now, if you're a seasoned lawyer, you need to make sure that even if you see a slight weakness in your case, you can make sure that you represent both the parties after you take the consent. Now I'm going to tell you why. Some immigration officers, they will raise this question that there is a conflict of interest in the case because the wife and husband are not together, but make sure that your clients agree that I need representation. Do not be nervous. You have the Sixth Amendment right to counsel. Let them know that the right to counsel attaches an immigration, and there are many, many case laws on the point. The mistake you're going to do as an attorney, the mistake you're going to do is you're going to allow immigration to separate your clients. And after that, if you allow them to separate the clients, then that's where the problem can begin. So the problem can begin from there. And the officer may force your client to sign basically that this marriage was entered into with an intent to circumvent the immigration laws of the United States, and it is a fraudulent marriage. But before the officer does that, you have the right to speak to the officer. You also have the right under the INA to let them know that bottom line is that I am withdrawing the application, or this matter should be adjourned, and I'm not allowing my clients to be left alone because the right to counsel does attach over that. But what happens in future, that's a different thing. But your client should basically follow your directions, because if your client says once it's a bona fide marriage, deep dive into that. Attack the problem, because that's a procedural due process right. And some lawyers freak out, they get scared. Tell them I'm withdrawing the petition, or I need another date, or speak to the supervisor. Does that happen? Very often the answer is no. Because some lawyers don't read the law very well. And there was a fantastic case a while ago. And this was when special registration was on. And this was during, the case of Catholic Charities, wherein the judge made it very clear that the right to counsel does attach. The lawyer has to be there. So make sure that when you are preparing your client for a marriage-based immigration case, make sure that you show them what are the rights, right to counsel, and they have the right to even remain silent. Just tell the officer, I don't want to talk any further. And let them know that I'm not happy the way the interview is being conducted. Another reason which I've seen is that sometimes some immigration officers will tell you, and immigration lawyers don't take up those cases. And I'll tell you that there are some cases you should take up. In the beginning, I told you the cases that you should not take up. But there are cases that you should take up. And I'll tell you which cases can be taken up first. Of course, the marriage has to be bona fide. That's a no-brainer. A client walks into your doorstep, tells you that I am not living with my wife together. Does that mean that this is a fake marriage? The answer is no. The case law is very clear on the point that a couple does not have to be living together 24/7. So even if they are living in different places, take an example about two doctors working in two different hospitals. One is in New York, one is in Florida. One is doing a rotation because she got a job over there. Second one is in New York in another top-notch hospital. They have this great, kind of album that they got married. They have all the evidence. At the end of the day, this is a proper and a bona fide marriage, but you need to disclose it to the officer that they are living separate, but they meet on the weekend, they fly, because at the end of the day, it is the evidence that matters in these cases. And there are times when I've openly told the officer that, hey, listen, my clients don't live together. Any problem with that? And the officer said, wow, not many lawyers bring this up. I said, why? They should bring it up and let them know there are reasons of why they are not, and the officer will respect you or not. So don't be scared when these things happen. You just have to be a good lawyer. That's number one. Secondly, what you learned so far is don't throw the towel, learn to withdraw the case, but make sure your client does not sign that document over there stating that I have married this person for fraud if you feel that it's not a fraudulent marriage. If you think that that's what exactly, because you're the best judge of your case, you're done with that, you saved your client. Now, the next thing that is going to happen is two things may come up. The officer will withdraw the case. If he's a good officer, he'll help you. Or you may get a decision in the mail stating that USCIS believes that this is not a bona fide marriage, and therefore the case is being denied. A lot of lawyers get scared. Now, this is where the case law comes in. There is a big difference between a fraudulent marriage or a marriage which is meant to evade the immigration laws. To use a better word, the word is evade the immigration laws under section 204C of the INA. So let's get to some advanced stuff now and how we are going to do it. Then we're also going to get into federal practice slowly as we move on. So what does 204C of the INA state? And this is meant for advanced lawyers now. And it states that a marriage fraud bar states that in relevant part that no petition shall be approved if the alien has previously been accorded or has been sought to be accorded an immediate relative or preference status as a spouse of a US citizen of the United States or the spouse of an alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence by reason of a marriage determined by the Attorney General to have been entered into for the purpose of evading the immigration laws. Evading the immigration laws. And secondly, the AG has determined that the alien has attempted or conspired to enter into a marriage for the purpose of evading the immigration laws. 8 USC 1154C. In plain meaning, what this is saying is that the AG needs to basically make a determination that the person has solely married with an intent to get an immigration benefit. And this marriage can be with a US citizen, or this marriage can also be with an LPR, which is commonly referred to as a legal permanent resident. So that's what it's meant. Is there anything to be scared about? You need to make sure that you fight with all your guns. If your client's case basically, is important for you to defend, and if a client says that I did not enter into this marriage because, now look at what 204C says. Let's basically dissect 204C. And we're going to get into some case laws. A very important case is the matter of Laureano. This is meant for people who want to kind of write the case law on the point. 19 INN, December 1st, BIA 1983. Matter of Laureano, Laureano, Laureano. Matter of Laureano, 19 INN, BIA 1983. Excellent case law. Very good case law. Because it makes a very important point for a marriage. It states that a marriage should be fraudulent from the inception. From the inception means if I am marrying Jane Doe, when I married her, my intent should have been at that time that I want to get a green card from Jane Doe. So now You went with your client to the interview, and John told you, who's married to Jane, so when I married her, I loved her. I fell in love with her. And later on, things did not work out. This is a fantastic argument when you're sitting before the USCIS officer. Then that what you're looking at now, don't you think that differences can arise between the couple? Let him know to look at section 204C in front of you and cite the matter of Laureano. The officer will be surprised as to what you're talking about. And if your client says, your beneficiary says that, sir, when I'm married, I love this woman very much. Later on, I'm not getting along. The case will be denied. The case will be denied because they are not establishing a life. But look at the difference here. What you did, you got him out of 204C by citing the matter of Laureano, and your client is saying that, listen, I love this woman and I love her. And love is a very subjective issue. And, some people are not very expressive. They fall in love. I fell in love looking at her beautiful hair. I fell in love with those wonderful rosy eyes she has, beautiful eyes. And, it was like that movie, For Your Eyes Only. Your client fell in love. Love at first sight can happen. Who says that love at first sight doesn't happen? The officer may laugh, but then that's my client. That's his subjective decision. And if he says that I love you, that's all it is at that time. But now, if the marriage does not work out, the case law is very clear. In future, your client cannot be charged with a marriage fraud. Because later on, there are going to be irreconcilable differences because that happened after the marriage. Now, the good news for you is, if you argued your case well, and if your client says that, sir, I love this lady, I swear to God from day one, fight for him. And after you fight for him, the good news is that there's case law on this point that makes it very clear. Now look at this, I'm going to read something here for you. That also makes it clear that later on, if differences happen, then the marriage fraud bar under 204C should not be applied. Look at this language. The eventual circumstances of the marriage and the happiness of its parties, as well as the conduct before and after the marriage, are only relevant to the extent that they illuminate the subjective state of mind of the alien at the time of the marriage. To illustrate the understanding of this central question, see INN December 2 at 2. The board has consistently highlighted the difference between marriages that are fraudulent and those that are unsuccessful. Those that are unsuccessful. Now, they married, he fell in love with the lady. Later on, the marriage was unsuccessful or non-viable despite the initial intention of the spouses. Matter of Mickey, MCKEE, 17 INN December 332, BIA 1980. Matter of Mickey, 17 INN December 332, BIA 1980. Easy thing, 17 INN, BIA 1980, to make it easy. So what does Mickey say? Matter of MCKEE makes it clear that it is the intent of the parties when you married at the time. Later on, what happened does not matter. And now, the good news is that exactly you converted this case by explaining it to the officer who agrees with you now, that he said, okay, I'm going to tell you that I agree that the marriage did not work out. And that's it. So you came up with 2 bites of the apple here. One, either withdraw or explain it to the officer. Most officers are good, they're human beings. But a good lawyer knows the law. He knows the matter of Mickey. He knows the matter of Laureano. And the next one I'm going to talk about is Taufik and how immigration denies these cases. And when these cases come to your doorstep, you don't take up these cases, or sometimes basically you say that it's a hopeless case. It may not be a hopeless case. We are going to talk about how to basically dissect the case and see whether there is light at the end of the tunnel. Any questions, Anjali, so far? So we'll take some questions and I'm going to get back again and deep dive into this. I hope all of you are enjoying this session. And if there is something that you don't understand, feel free to ask us questions over here.
Thank you, sir. And thank you to all the attendees who have recently joined us. I hope everyone is taking notes. And this message is especially for the lawyers who are watching us. In case if you are an experienced lawyer in your practice area, then you are welcome to be one of our guest speakers, because we offer a chance to build a community where we can all build a network by introducing each other and share our knowledge. Just how we have Mr. Gehi with us today, we'll be having a different speaker for the next week, and we'll be having a different speaker for the coming weeks. So in case if you're interested to be one of our speakers, then you can forward us your resume on legalquestions@mylegalsoftware.com, and we'll get back to you if you're eligible for the same. Sir, I have a question with me. So what are these evidences that you've been talking about? So for an example, you said that, you have to give the evidence to the court that this is a valid marriage or stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, so, from the beginning, make sure that your client has enough evidence, like joint documents. You're looking at credit card bills. You're looking at, making sure that the client has a lease. Health insurance matters a lot. Then, pictures. A picture speaks 1,000 words. And immigration officers look at the pictures very carefully to see, because the wedding album speaks a lot. How many people were there for the wedding and who were the witnesses to the wedding? Those are signs that they look at very carefully. Then the joint tax returns, who's the joint sponsor, and whether, the spouse is on welfare, how they're going to support you. Those are critical factors that a lawyer needs to look at very carefully before they take up the case. Because, I get calls from lawyers, and, I try to talk to them and I tell them how to handle these cases. And, this is what something, I do all the time. And, I'm sure Anjali, you're also sponsoring this. You're allowing people to come to MYLS. And, I'll be happy to mentor people if they come to you. We are here to help lawyers in any area of law as much as we know it, especially when it comes to New York. You're looking at matrimonial law. And if they need some help, we have other people also in this panel that can help lawyers out once if they subscribe to My Legal Software.
Yeah.
So what happens, even paralegals sometimes, who work for law firms, they've been kind of getting in touch with us and, coming for these seminars, and they can also let people know the value that MYLS brings to lawyers, besides being a platform, which I think people should try, because I believe, you have a 14-day trial. Through that, they can see what benefit it brings to people. Now, let's get to the second point. And before that, if you have anything to say, please talk about it, Anjali, before I get to the second part of it, which is going to be very important and advanced. We are also going to get into federal practice that deals with these matters of 204C and how you need to fight 204Cs if a client has already had a case of marriage fraud. This is something we'll give you options. So you may please finish what you need to tell your viewers so I can take it to the next level.
Yes, sir. So thank you for bringing up the point. So it's a request to all of our attendees that in case if you have any questions, you can drop your questions on the comment section below, or you can also drop us an email at legalquestions@mylegalsoftware.com. Also, like sir mentioned, we are planning to build a community where we can help each other, so that if you have a case where you need an attention from someone else, or if someone else needs an attention from you, so our platforms basically is helping all the lawyers build up their practice in a better way. And people who sign up for MYLS are offered free legal mentorship from the attorney panel that we have, including Mr. Gehi here. And you'll be offered a free legal mentorship in case if you want to, know the next steps or the best steps to take in the particular case. Because Mr. Gehi has, and if in fact most of our attorney panel has a very good experience for handling difficult clients in difficult cases. And since My Legal Software is planning to build a community where all the lawyers can come up and they can speak up so that nobody feels left out, even the new attorneys can have a lot of questions, or the experienced people can have a lot of questions. So that's what My Legal Software is trying to come up with.
All right. So now, thank you so much for that. Now, let me just basically, talk about the next thing. Now, also speakers can not only be from immigration, you can talk about divorces, and also the referral business goes up for lawyers by joining this, because some lawyers may refer cases to you. PI lawyers can come in, or divorce attorneys can come in, family law attorneys can come in from different states. And also what I've realized is that once if these seminars are getting published, a lot of lawyers are looking at it, clients are looking at it. It's a good way for you to build your business by becoming a speaker. And you'll also be on the website, as one of the speakers out there. But there are qualifications. You have to be very good at what you do. You should be knowledgeable. You should know the case law. You should know the statute, and you should have some good credentials. That's the request of the company, which we want to keep very high standards over here. So there'll be a screening before a person even becomes a speaker. But definitely, a group of people will be looking at who you are. And you can be from any state, but we'll make sure that we'll announce that that is applicable to your particular state. And federal lawyers are welcome because that's great. PI lawyers can also come in. Divorce attorneys can come in. We are okay with that. All right. So now we spoke about this important issue. Now for new lawyers, again, just let me go back a little bit because I didn't speak about the Stokes interview. Now, sometimes new lawyers have this big problem. They go for the interview and the officer called you for the second time with a big smile on his face. And you're very excited. You're telling your client, hey, looks like the officer's called us again. And I think we have to pick up the green card. Especially new attorneys, please be careful. The second interview may be a Stokes interview. And it's not easy to handle the Stokes interview unless and until you're very good and you have that confidence. Confidence only comes with time. Confidence only comes when you have good mentors. Confidence only comes when you are good, very well read with the law. So you thought that this officer is calling you to give your client a green card. But now what happens when you go there? Bad news. He is going to separate you, your client. Both the clients are going to be separated and ask questions. Now, the danger part is when you're called, your client is called for a Stokes. And if the questions are not matching, and if he sees the vast difference between the answers of both the parties, I've seen officers, investigations officers sitting at those interviews and taking the client at the side and even letting them know, you better sign the document that we know that you're married for fraud. And the client is scared and he may sign that. So be careful when you have Stokes interview. Now, people ask me, what is Stokes? And very often, I met a lawyer recently and he said, it's a Stokes interview. So I asked him, what's a Stokes? He said, it's just a Stokes wherein both are going to be separated. I said, that's all. So I asked him, where does the word Stokes come from? He said, I don't know. First thing is that, remember, there was a case law by the name of Stokes. Stokes is actually a case law that allows immigration the right to deep dive into the marriage to see whether it's a bona fide marriage. It gives them the authority to basically make sure that the marriage is a genuine marriage. So read the case law of Stokes. Read the case law of Stokes. It's a very interesting case law. I've read it many times. And make sure that as a good lawyer, you understand what Stokes is. You also understand the questioning that can be done in the Stokes. So now you went there and you're this lawyer that you threw the travel and the client signed everything. And now the client is in a mess. Now, this is for advanced practitioners I'm getting back to. A case comes to your office. A case comes to your office. And you read the decision. And you realize that the client has a 204C. And this is for advanced lawyers. What can you do? It would be great if people can also start, asking questions because I'd love to make sessions interactive. What are the options and remedies? Most people will say, especially solo law firms and, law firms which, are kind of basically, they do this regular practice rather than litigation and immigration. They're going to throw away the towel and say, I'm sorry, you have a 204C. Folks, there are options for people. Yes, there are. I handled the case. Now I'm coming to one of the cases which Anjali just mentioned. And this is a lovely case. And I won this case. Look at the facts of this case. Client went to the AOS interview. That was not my client then, with her husband. And they went with a different attorney. And the husband, who was the petitioner in this action, put it in writing that he has married this woman for papers. As you know, I just read 204C. And you all might be wondering, that's the death of the case, or Mr. Gehi is thinking about an appeal in this case, or something or the other. All right, I was not involved. I was enjoying myself. Suddenly, I get a knock on my door from a woman. She said, Mr. Gehi, I'm in tears. I'm in deportation right now. All right. Why in deportation? I had another lawyer in the past, and I went over there, and my husband signed papers and said that I married him for papers. All right. I looked at the paper, and she was crying in tears because she had to go before the judge. And she met quite a few lawyers who said, I cannot represent you. You're looking at a dead end over there. A lot of lawyers here might be thinking that Mr. Gehi might be thinking about asylum. No, I did not. No, I did not. I spoke to her at length. And then asked her some very important questions. And I said, did you love this man? She said that I used to live with him and I fell in love with this guy. And I was his cleaner at one time in the house. I used to basically live in his house. And I used to do dishes and everything. I was called in as a cleaner. And I fell in love with this man. He was so handsome. Now look at this. 204C comes in. She was in love with him. I didn't care whether he's in love with her, but she's in love with him. Rule number one. Rule number two, I asked her, did he hug you? She said several times. I said, excellent. Did you have a physical relationship? She said, yes, he did. I said, thank you. How much do you love him? As much as God alone knows from my heart, I'm devastated right now. All right. And what happened in the interview? Well, he was being mean. He was being abusive to me. Never gave me the respect that I deserve as a woman. And I married him and I loved him so much that I'm devastated. All right. So the matter comes to the New York Immigration Court. The government is ready to fire with all the guns. That judge, this is a case involving marriage fraud. I said, I deny this. I deny this right now. And to be more precise, but I also told them that I deny this allegation. And then after that, the judge said, what relief are you seeking? I said, Judge, I'm seeking relief under VAWA, under the Violence Against Women's Act. And then I spoke to this lady and I told her that, can you tell me the people who knew him or knew about the marriage and everything? And luckily, there was a priest who had conducted the marriage and he was ready to come before the immigration court and testify that he met the guy and, you know, this is what it was. And if I still remember correctly, it was this wonderful, great judge, Noel Brennan, whom I salute, who said that I want to listen to this case. And as the case went on, and on, more testimony started coming in. We got more witnesses in the case. We got more affidavits in the case. We got a psychologist involved in the case. On the date of the trial, we got the psychologist there and the priest over there who conducted the wedding and 3 witnesses. And that application was granted under VAWA. So from a marriage fraud case, this is what you can do. If your client is getting an NTA, a notice to appear, fight it. Don't throw the towel. That's scenario number 1. Because most people might be wondering that how did the judge have jurisdiction in this case over the I-130. Sorry, folks, it's not the I-130 year. You're looking at the EOIR 42A. So we fought under that, and judge exercised jurisdiction, and the person was okay. And also, I think it was your 42B also applied because in this case, because she had a kid or something of that sort, really. So there's a great question over here. We are going to talk about this. How far do USCIS immigration authorities and investigations go? So this lady got her green card and she's now a US citizen in this country. So that's one prong of the test. Second thing is that you may have a situation in the past wherein your client actually has a 204C. What can you do to fight or defend 204C? Now, this is what you can do. The second way to fight marriage fraud is to continue to be remaining married to the same spouse and reapply for the adjustment. Most scholars would know this answer. Good lawyers would know the answer. Married to the same spouse and applying again is an exception to 204C, because you're continuing to be married to the same spouse and they have to exercise jurisdiction and they have to look at you again. That I'm back with my wife. Happy days are here again. Adjudicate again. Adjudicate again. Now, let me tell you about one of my cases, which I'm kind of going to tell you, and I'm allowed to talk about it because I've consent from my client. And this was reported in the New York Times, a 2-page case. And I told them not to put my name in because I was fighting that case very aggressively. Okay, the case name is Shari Feldman and Inderjit Uppal. They were married for 17 years and immigration did not believe the marriage. We fought it, we got the guy the green card. We took it to the New York Times, but I was very, very kind of very much on my guard. When I went to immigration, I told them this case needs to be adjudicated. So end of the day, marriage-based cases, you need to have that kind of, that fire that you want to fight at when you feel. And I told the officer, 17 years, length of the marriage. You think that's something that someone would remain married to someone for 17 years to just get papers in the country? With all this evidence, this is before you. I need to make sure, officer, that you are not abusing your discretion. That's your legal right to tell the officer. I do not want the abuse of discretion to take place in this matter because this is a part of administrative law. And I feel that there is an abuse of discretion in the case. That's the language a lawyer uses. And if you want to make things better, do you also know that in an I-130 petition, procedural due process also applies? I'll cite the case law on the point to you. Even in I-130 petitions, the courts, especially the Ninth Circuit, came on very well and said that recently in a very beautiful decision. And I love this Ninth Circuit decision. And okay, the court holds that a constitutionally protected property interest attaches to 8 USC 1154B, and by extension to the adjudication of plaintiff's Form I-130 petition, Kaplash versus Johnson, brilliant case. And this is from the Western District of New York, 230F Supplement 3D 128, 230 Federal Supplement 3D 128, Kaplash, CAPLASH versus Johnson. So you're also seeing a constitutional interest because the petitioner's interest applies in these cases, folks. So let the officer know that if my wife is not getting the green card, if my husband is not getting the green card, I'm suffering because this is my constitutional right to fight with you. Do lawyers use that? I've hardly seen lawyers using this. Cite the Constitution. And one other thing which we are going to talk about, and we'll take a short little 1-minute break because I believe Anjali has some questions she wants me to answer. So again, we'll get back to this. I hope you're enjoying this advanced session. And we're also going to cite some other case laws. And we're going to show you some other ways of how you can kind of, fight marriage fraud issue cases wherein people have had an 204C on the record. Anjali, back to you. I hope you're enjoying this session.
Thank you so much, and welcome to all the attendees who are
It's a
watching
pleasure.
us.
Yeah.
We have with us Mr. Gehi here, and we are today talking about the marriage fraud cases and how to defend them. Sir, I think we should start taking the questions because the inbox is quite full of the questions.
Okay, how far do US immigration authorities' investigative powers go? All right, they have the power to investigate, of course. But they also have to watch the line of law at the same time. Investigations means that they have the right to deep dive to basically, get a warrant and go to people's houses, which I have not seen happening. And secondly, they need to have their burden of proof by means of substantial, the word is substantial and probative evidence. That's how far they have to go. And for example, if it is apparent on the face, if this is a fraudulent marriage, of course, the lady tells you openly, hey, listen, this guy gave me $10,000 to get married. And she's ready to write down and give it to you. He gave me 25,000, told me, I'm going to get you a green card, man. Of course, that is marriage fraud. They have it in writing over here. The lady is also saying, I'm going to divorce him right now. And government, if you need me as a witness, I'm ready to come to court. Simple, straight up. This guy has to pack his bag and leave in those cases, or he has to look for some other alternative remedies out here. So that's something the government has. But your client is telling you a different story here. He's telling you that I loved her. Now again, you have a fight there. So you can still fight those cases. Because for him, it was love at first sight. But there's a problem in the case. But a good lawyer would not take up this case. Can you tell me why, Anjali?
So because the lady has given the written proof that I took money for marrying, like that's like a government authentication kind of.
Be careful. Look at the thin line of law. Ask your client whether he actually gave him the $10,000.
Ah, yes.
If he did not give the $10,000, probably she's lying.
True.
Was there a check written of $10,000?
But transactional details have to be submitted, right?
Did he charge a credit card? Trial lawyers deep dive. Trial lawyer deep dive. Trial lawyer deep dive. My message is loud and clear. Learn to fight. If your client did not give the money, you have a fight right there.
I hope people are taking notes because these sessions are really advanced.
Good cases are always won. And by the way, what you did, you lost the case, but you did not agree to marriage fraud when the person was in removal and you came up with an alternative strategy out here. At least the judge will understand the case. And unfortunately, immigration courts do not have jurisdiction over I-130s, but you preserve that for appeal before the BIA. We are going to come to that too. But when it's before the immigration judge, you can tell him, Judge, this is my appeal. I'm going to keep it before you. We are still fighting. So at least the immigration judge knows that, you're fighting that marriage fraud issue. And there may be an alternative relief available, like political asylum may be available in that case. So those are factors that judges look at, because judges look at, they have this thing in them that they want to see everything in a case before they exercise their discretion. Even if it's an asylum case, but the judge should not do that, but they look at everything in a case, So therefore, the thing is always show that, that great kind of presence in the courtroom that, yes, you are fighting your client's case. Now, yes, let's take some questions here.
Yes, sir. So the next question is, will past marriage fraud hurt my client's chances of getting an asylum?
No. I've handled a case like this, and I think this session is going to go on for more than an hour because I think it's a great session and I know people are enjoying this. So the thing is that no, because 204C has to do nothing with section 208 or 209 of the INA. You're looking at asylum under section 208 or 209, and that is fear of persecution. But you're not filing a family-based immigration application here or a benefit application here through this. Asylum falls under a different category. It's a different animal altogether. And courts have made it very clear that they can pursue with asylums. I've also had a case wherein we pursued with basically, Violence Against Women's Act. You can also pursue with cancellation of removal for non-permanent residents under section 240 of the INA. Those are your options. Now, I'm going to show you some creative strategies how to fight a 204C. But before that, let's take some questions.
So next question is there anything that can be done to reduce the separation time?
What do you mean by separation time?
So in the sense when the couple is reliving separately, like before the divorce part. I
Okay,
think that
so the thing is that separation time means exactly, I don't understand the question very clearly. If you could just, let me take another question here.
okay, sir. So how far do US immigration authorities investigate powers, like investigate
Yeah, I
the
just
case?
mentioned that they're very wide investigative powers, especially when they, suspect marriage fraud cases. They can even basically, go to people's houses and take basically statements from relatives that whether this case is a case involving marriage fraud. But there's an important pointer to that, which I'm going to mention, that they have to send you a notice of intent to deny or a request for evidence. And that has to be handled very carefully because there's a Ninth Circuit decision on that clearly states that people have to basically get an opportunity to rebut because there are constitutional protections involved in these cases.
So next question is, what are the legal penalties in US for a marriage fraud?
People can be put into jail, number one. Secondly, under 204C of the INA, you're barred from getting benefits even if you get married to someone else. You cannot get your green card. Even if your children over the age of 21, if they petition you, you're not going to get a green card. So those are some serious penalties that come in place under Section 204C of the INA.
So next question is, how do you know, looking at the decision, that the client is charged with a marriage fraud?
I'm sorry, what?
So how do you know, looking at the decision, that the client is charged with marriage fraud?
All right. So you have to know how to read a decision. And some lawyers just get scared by when they see the language that exactly that this case is being denied because it was meant with an intent to circumvent the immigration laws of the United States and everything. Unless and until they don't say that you're being denied under Section 204C on the INA, and we have enough evidence to show that your marriage was a fraudulent marriage, that's how it is. But you fail to prove the bona fides of the marriage, that's a different question. You still have a second bite of the apple that you can explore some other avenue to qualify for the green card.
Okay. So next question is, which is the leading case of marriage fraud case?
Some of the cases that you need to know is the matter of Loriano, number one, matter of Mickey, matter of Singh, matter of Tawfiq is very important because it makes it clear that the government's burden over here is not preponderance of evidence. It's much higher than that. Substantial and probative evidence, very important case law. The matter of TAWFIK is very important. That's very important. Matter of Gehi is very important. As I said, marriage fraud cannot be made unless the district director issued a request for evidence. So Gehi is important because Gehi makes it very clear that, hey, listen, even when you go for the interview, right, you're telling the officer to withdraw the case and he's not withdrawing. Tell him that please give me an opportunity to reply to your notice of intent to deny and tell him to give an adjournment for that. You saved your client. Put a roadblock right there by citing the matter of Gehi right there. Because some of these USCIS officers may not even know the matter of Gehi. That's what a good lawyer brings to the table. The knowledge, the ability to fight, provided your client is making it clear that his marriage was bona fide when he married her. Remember that example for your eyes only? I fell in love with your hair. You should say that because the marriage was valid then. Don't make a fool of yourself. It says right up there, I just gave her $10,000, I married her. You'll be in trouble as a lawyer. This is what I teach. Know the line of ethics is very thin, and new lawyers, and especially lawyers with less than 10 years experience, should always have somebody helping them. It's always a good idea. Anyone who's a great mentor, helping them in immigration. I also talk about other areas of the law. I love helping people, but this is what exactly how cases have to be fought.
So thank you for bringing the point. So of course, the mentorship is critically important, especially when it comes to marriage fraud case or any other case.
So we'll just make this short because we have only 5 minutes remaining. This has been one of our best, I believe, episodes, so far. Like, I think people are loving it. A few things, what you can do is, suppose if you have a 204C, another creative strategy is, if you can get an affidavit of bona fide marriage from the same spouse, you have a fight, you can also file a motion to reopen and renew. If that gets denied, then you can take it to federal court, like you can take it to the federal district court and say that that marriage was bona fide. And this evidence just came to light now. You did not have this evidence before because the decision was not received by the client. When you go to federal court, and if you're a federal practitioner, try to take the case before the magistrate if the government consents. And generally, most US attorneys are very good. And tell them that, listen, I'm going to subpoena the officer, because sometimes you'll see that, there are some decent marriages when some officers abuse discretion and tell them, hey, listen, I'm going to put you into jail. And they use coercion and duress upon the client. And there are case laws that coercion and duress cannot be used in order to make a person sign the papers. And if you feel that happened, tell the government, we want to settle the case. Can you just grant an ordinary, fraud waiver to the client? And some US attorneys will say that's a great strategy. Let's meet in between. The magistrate may bring up a settlement conference. Therefore, federal practice is very important in immigration. And just take it up over there. And of course, like, you have to make sure if the BIA has denied it, you took it back to the BIA. They denied it, then again you take it back, because after that you have 30 days to take it to federal court. These are complicated cases, very complicated. And if you're a good lawyer, you can make a lot of money in these cases by handling a few of those handful of cases and getting results for your clients. It's very rewarding, folks. And you should be a fighter. You have to provide it. Remember that example. Your client says that I love this Mona Lisa from the time I seen this Mona Lisa. So if that's the case, then take up the case, because that's where ethics comes in as a lawyer. Love at first sight is the best way to know 204C. Love at first sight. Your client loved them because 204C makes it very clear. You should have fallen in love when you married the lady or the man. If you exchange money, and if your intent was to just get the green card, then don't even get involved with that case, because you're violating the rules of ethics. Any other questions? And thank you, folks. And, thank you to My Legal Software. Fantastic job by the entire team. My special thanks to Urvashi, to Anjali, to Priyanjali, to Ravi, and who are making this show possible. And if there's any other questions, and if you want to get a demo from Anjali, and if you love mentorship, and remember, experienced lawyers, please come in and talk, and let's grow this platform together and make it into something that can be very powerful. It can help you to grow your PI practice, your divorce practice, because these videos are actually going on, I would say, YouTube and everywhere, and you're seeing a lot of people looking at these videos, I believe, correct, Anjali?
Correct, sir. So we have the seminar videos on all our social media platforms. Even on YouTube channel, we have all the sessions. So in case if anybody has missed any of Mr. Gehi's sessions, so we can always go back to a channel and see. So thank you so much, sir, for being.
Remember, folks, anytime if it's a complicated marriage-based immigration case, don't just throw the towel. There may be light at the end of the tunnel. Be a fighter. Look at decisions. Know the matter of Tawfiq very well. Know the matter of Laureano, and know basically federal law very well. That there are cases from the Western District of New York, and there are some fantastic cases like the matter of Gehi, which is very important. Zeregzi versus United States, USCIS 955 FD 802. That's a 9th Circuit case. Beautiful. Goldberg versus Kelly. I love that case. This is also telling you that your US citizen spouse has a constitutional right. So the officer cannot just try to basically kind of say, hey, I don't like that you're missing something. They cannot pick a needle from a haystack and deny the case. They need to look at the totality of circumstances. Goldberg versus Kelly is not cited very much by immigration lawyers. And I want to see, I know it's from the 9th Circuit, but sorry, it's a US decision, actually. My apologies. That's a great decision, actually. Goldberg versus Kelly, 397 US. That's great. So use that decision that the officer cannot say a no to, or at least he'll give you some kind of credit for showing these cases. Any other, and next week, fantastic. As we mentioned, we'll try to get some great speakers down, and I'll be joining him ethics and disciplinary actions against attorneys before the grievance committee. Doesn't matter what practice you have, you should attend. You learn a lot. And this is someone from the grievance committee. His name is Joseph D. Felice. He served on the grievance for 8 years. I think that's what I remember. He will be coming and talking about Lozada for immigration lawyers. He's going to talk about what the grievance committee looks at. As you can see, we are always looking for quality speakers. Priyanjali, as we get a lot of people applying, but we filter the people we want to come and talk on this platform. If you're very good, make sure that you can write a cover letter, send your resume, because we are going to keep the standards very high over here to make sure that we have fantastic mentors. And as a speaker, you'll also get a chance to become a mentor if you want to. And that firm may be interested in co-counseling with you. There's a lot of gates that open up. So it's very simple. You can call that number over here on the screen, that 212. Anjali will mention that. And join the team of My Legal Software. Take a demo. Only join it if you're comfortable. There's no kind of basically, that's her job to do this. I'm just talking as a lawyer, but it's a good idea for you guys to look at it and then make your, actual decisions whether you want to go for it. There's no push, nothing. And especially paralegals should explore this, because there are some wonderful features which I use, and I use the templates when I do marriage fraud cases. I use my templates, which are beautifully kind of presented by My Legal Software. I use basically some of the things, the hyperlinks of LexisNexis from there. Then I use the calendar to keep those events in place. So I use a lot of those features, because one of the reasons why people become successful, not me, I don't know whether I'm successful or not, that's a saying that beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. And, if you think that you want to be successful, make sure that you have the right software, legal software. You have the right legal research tools. And I'm a big fan of top companies that I use. Make sure that you have the right experts that you use in your practice. Make sure that you have good mentors. And your mentor doesn't have to be from your office. And if you want to rise in the profession, make sure that you're someone who teaches you, to grow. And it can be anybody. It can be anybody. It can be another great immigration mentor. It can be a great personal injury mentor. And a very high regard for all the great lawyers who were here today, all the paralegals that who've been here today. And I'm grateful for the fantastic service that you do to our nation, irrespective of all the words that we have to listen to from our clients, because I know that things are hard in the country and it's not easy to be in your shoes. God bless you. It's thank you for being here. And if you like this session, please share it. Please create an awareness, because that gives me the motivation to come to this platform and come up with some advanced topics so that we all can come in. And please, experienced mentors, my friends, my brothers, we'd love to have you here next time, because I want my friends to come in and join us now. And if you like us, comment about this, like us, share it on Facebook, share it on Google, and tell people to like us on LinkedIn so that we can make this better and better and better. And as you've seen that I'm putting in my best foot forward, I'm coming up with case laws, I'm doing everything as much as I can to make sure that a regular practitioner and an advanced practitioner get something from our sessions. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Gehi has actually covered a lot of points that My Legal Software covers for you. So just want to conclude this session by saying that this event was sponsored by My Legal Software, which is a legal case management solution. We help with the all-in-one, dashboard for the lawyers, for the law firm, so that they can handle their cases, their documentation, their mailing, their billing, their clients, their documents, their forms, and even their meetings and reminders, notifications, everything all at one place. And in case if this is something that interests you, please give us a call on 212-390-9493, and we'll help you out with the needs that your law firm requires to grow their practice, their client base, and anything that actually has a legal aspect to it. And
we'll try our best, just that will help you, not that we can kind of, we'll do our best to make sure that you get somewhere. We want to make that clear. And folks, one other thing which I would like to tell people, of course, it's your right to do what you want, but definitely look at My Legal Software before you subscribe to any other legal software, even if they have two versions over here. One is for immigration lawyers with forms, custom forms and everything. The other one is meant for general practice lawyers, like personal injury lawyers. You're looking at family lawyers. You're looking at bankruptcy lawyers, and closings and everything and whatnot. There are two separate versions here, so you need to look at both the softwares before you make your decision. And even it's very good for general practice lawyers, but I think you should be the judge. That's the way I leave it at this stage.
So we actually cover most of the practice areas in our software, and our clients have given a very good feedback until now, and we are hoping to get more questions on the same. Thank you, Mr. Gehi, for joining us. Thank you, everybody who's watching this
And next
live.
week is very important. Lozada will be discussed. Matters before the grievance committee is going to be discussed. How they look at it from a well-known person's perspective. And our speaker will be Jody Felice, who served in the second department on the grievance committee. And he'll be coming and joining us. And thank you so much. And if you want to be a speaker, if you want to get a demo, get in touch with Anjali. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Mr. Gehi, and thank you everyone for joining us. And I'll see you next week. Thank you.